This is Unstuck, and in this video we are looking at functions. And this will look at composite functions, inverse functions, and modulus functions. But first of all, we need to look at what is a function. And a function has a domain, which is all the possible input values, x, and then it also has a range, and this is all the possible output values, y. And there are two types of functions. One of them is a one-to-one function, and one of them is a many-to-one function. So first of all, we'll look at what a one-to-one function, and normally this is just a straight line. And we can tell this is a one-to-one function because there is one domain and one range. So for example, if I was to put the domain here, this is x going up at here, then we get this point, and this just has one output as well. That's why it's a one-to-one function, as it has one input here, and then one output here. Now the other one is a many-to-one function, and here we have a quadratic, but we could also have something like a sine curve, for example. And here, if we have a input here, which gives us this point here, and that goes there. So that looks like a one-to-one. But then if we look at this point here, is the same as this point here. There we are. And that is there another input. So we have multiple inputs to give the same range or the same output. And that's why it's a many-to-one function. However, if we were to have a one-to-many thing, it would not be a function. So a one-to-many could look like this, for example, where we have one input here gives two outputs. That is not a function because there are two outputs. It can only ever have one output as a function. So the next thing to look at in functions is composite functions. And composite functions are formed by combining two or more functions. And here we have an example. So we have f of x is equal to 3x plus 7, and g of x is equal to 3x squared minus 9. So the first one says, what is f g of x? And what I say is we start with the one to the left, and then once we get an x, we substitute in the other one. So here, if we start with the f, we're going to have a 3. Now, as we have an x here, this is where I say we substitute in the other one. So we substitute in the g, so then we have 3x squared minus 9. But then we still have to add this 7 at the end, so add the 7. Now that is technically our answer, but we can simplify this much more to get 9x squared minus 27 plus 7 which is equal to 9x squared minus 20. So the next one here is gf, but instead of x is of minus 1. Now we're going to go about it exactly the same way, we'll just sub in minus 1 at the end. But this time we're going to start with the g, and we'll have the 3 here. Then we're going to have 3x plus 7 but because the x is squared, then we're going to square this, and then minus 9. Now this is therefore equal to 3 times by 9x squared plus 42x plus 49 minus 9. And once we times everything by 3 and then minus the 9, we will have 27x squared plus 126x plus 138. Now what we need to do is, because this is in x, if it was gf to the x then we would have a final answer, but it's gf to the minus 1. So now we're just going to sub in minus 1, and that would go to 27 times minus 1 squared would go 27, then you do minus 126, and then plus 138. And that is equal to 39. And that is our final answer. So the next area to look at in functions is inverse functions. And there are 3 steps that you can follow when converting a function into an inverse function. And then we will do this for this question we have here. And this question is f of x is equal to 1 over x minus 2. And for this, we want to find what the inverse of this function is. So first of all, we will replace f of x with y. So that means that we simply have y is equal to 1 over x minus 2. Then this is where the most difficult part in it comes, as we have to rearrange to make x the subject. And this is using some basic algebra. Sometimes it's very easy. This is a medium example, so it's not extremely hard, but it isn't the easiest one either. But in order to do this, we're going to times it all by x minus 2. So then we have y to the x minus 2 is equal to 1. Now therefore, we can say that x minus 2 is equal to 1 over y. And that means that x is equal to 1 over y plus 2. Now, we have nearly finished our answer, and we've done all the hard part in just rearranging that there. But now we just have to replace the y with the x and make f to the minus 1x the subject. So therefore, we will make this the subject, f of minus 1 x, which is basically saying it's an inverse function, is equal to 1 over, and replacing the y over x, so 1 over x plus 2. And that is our final answer, and we've just got that from following those 3 basic steps. So the final thing that we're going to look at about functions is modulus functions. And the modulus of a number is its distance from 0, and this means that it cannot be any negative answers. And in order to find it on your calculator, you do shift and then a thing called abs, ABS, which means absolute value. But firstly, if we look at what the modulus of minus 7 is, this is very simple. As it cannot be a negative answer, the answer is simply 7. But then slightly harder is when you have to draw a modulus function. And this one says draw the modulus of x squared plus 3x minus 10. And in order to start this off, what we're going to do is just draw what it would be if there was no modulus in it at all. And if it wasn't, it would look something like this. Quadratic function. Here we are. The points it would cross would be, we'd have a minus 5 here. It would be a 2 here. And then minus 10 at the bottom. But as it cannot go beneath 0, this is where we have to draw the modulus, and the modulus comes in. So any value of it beneath 0 will be reflected in the x-axis to mean that it is all positive. So if I use a different color to show what the real bit would be here, as it gets below here, it would end up going like this. Simply reflecting it. And this would therefore be 10 at the top. So if it was all in red, the thing you would draw would be down like there, then up through that, through there, and then up like that. And that would be your graph. All of this, because its modulus, would be ignored. So that is all of functions. We've gone through composite, inverse, modulus, and the basics of a function. So thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye.